We're Hassani and Danielle Pettiford, and we're a real couple with real problems who almost called it quits.
I was very frustrated. I became very disconnected, very jaded and cold.
We have 4 children, going on 20 years of marriage, and we practice what we preach.
Our mission, to change the way couples relate to one another and teach them the skills needed to improve the quality of their relationships. This is the Couples Academy Show.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy Show. My name is Hassani, and it is an honor to be able to come to you every single day, Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is a show that's dedicated to teaching you how to have the best relationship that you can have. Now, remember, there are 3 relationships that we have. There's the relationship that you have with God, that is your vertical relationship. There's the relationship you have with yourself, that is your internal relationship. Then there's a relationship you have with others, spouse, children, whomever. Those are your horizontal relationships. And when you are excelling in all 3 of those, you have an amazing life. And so listen, before we get started today, make sure you take the time to like, share, and subscribe. We want the world to know that we are on. You're voting for us every time you click that share button. And for those who have come on for the first time, we want to welcome you to the show. This is what we do every day. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, whether you're on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or wherever you may be. We appreciate you being here. And so every time you click subscribe, you will get a notification when we go live. All right, we've been talking about consistency and the need for consistency in a marriage and how it really makes a difference. Because nothing's going to work unless you put in the work. And sometimes it takes your dedication, your tenacity, your stick-to-itivism, your uncompromising willingness to do whatever it takes until you experience a breakthrough. One of the things that keeps us from being consistent is oftentimes where there seems to be no change in sight. It seems as though the efforts that I've put forth hasn't done anything. It's not serving me. It's not fruitful. And we get to a place where we want to throw in the towel, call it quits, and give up. And so that's why we're talking today is, when you want to quit your marriage. It's interesting because overwhelmingly, many people come to a weekend intensive, whether it be a last chance weekend or a private session, and they're at the place where they want to give up. They're at the place where they want to quit. But it's interesting. They're yet still there. Something brought them there. Something caused them to pick up the phone. Something caused them to set up a discovery call. Something caused them to tune in. And so even though something within them says, I can't do it anymore, I'm ready to let it go, something within them, even if it's 1%, wants something to work. And so I'm speaking to the 1% in you this morning. If you're vacillating back and forth, trying to figure out, should I stay in this marriage? Should I go? And you begin to, in your mind, create a list of the pros and cons of going in any particular way. And on paper, it may look like divorce is the best option. I'm talking to you today to tell you that there's another opportunity for your life and for your marriage. I'm telling you this not because I read it in a book. I'm telling you this not because I've worked with thousands of couples who've been in that space. I'm telling you this because this is where I once was. There was a season of the marriage, a couple of them, when I felt like maybe it would be better if we weren't together. Maybe my life would be happier if our circumstances were different. I'm sure Danielle, in fact, I know Danielle has thought the same thing. But something kept us together even in the midst of our despair, when we felt like throwing in the towel and just letting it all go. When we wanted to quit the marriage, the reality is, if we think about it, most of us who are in this space quit the marriage before the marriage was actually over. That's what I'm talking about today. I'm not talking about divorce. I'm talking about those of you who want something better, but you've quit the marriage before there was even a divorce. How do we do that? Well, there's many ways that we do that. One of the obvious areas that shows up as a challenge in relationships is when couples stop touching. When couples stop touching is an indication that something is wrong. One of the problem areas that typically shows up is in a couple sex life. When couples stop having sex, when they're only engaging in duty sex, where they don't touch each other outside of sex. There's no touch, there's no affection. That is an indication that they've quit on the relationship, though they are still married, right? And so if we look at other areas, many people quit working so hard to understand and to be understood. So one of the biggest problem areas that we struggle with is communication. Many of us just quit trying. I'm done. I feel like every time we talk, it doesn't go anywhere. Every time we talk, we wind up in an argument. So I'm done. I'm good. I quit. And so when the communication breaks down, then everything else begins to break down in that marriage. As we said, is one of the biggest issues that overwhelmingly all of us in relationships struggle with. And because we haven't mastered the area of communication in terms of how to effectively communicate and resolve conflict with our spouse, we are ready to just let it go. Now, either the only time we do come together is when we're fussing and fighting and screaming and yelling and spitting, and it's just become verbally abusive. Some don't say nothing and draw hands, and they become very physical in their efforts. And some do nothing. They do not talk. The reality is, more than what you may think, more than what you may know, the silent treatment is really a killer of relationships. And it could be more damaging than the verbal attack. I've heard how couples could go hours after a conversation without talking. I've even heard how couples can go a day or two without talking. But some of you have gone for weeks into a month or more without talking. Literally in the same home, you don't do life together at all. You eat at different times. You sleep in different rooms. You pay different bills. And for whatever reason, when you come together, it must be about a duty, a task, an obligation, a responsibility. And once that is settled, you go back into your separate worlds. That is a dangerous place to be in. When it's gotten to that point, it means that something within you has quit. Yes, we're not divorced yet, but we've quit long before the divorce even happened. And so a lot of times when we're just looking at numbers and we see the fact that 50% of marriages end in divorce, we assume, oh, those are the ones who failed. But the 50% of those who remain together, they must be successful. Well, there are many failing relationships within these marriages that are still legally tied and bound to each other. In fact, about 30%, actually more than that. If you look at a pie and it's 100%, 50% legally divorced, 30% emotionally or socially divorced, 20% in a healthy place. So if 30% are emotionally, socially divorced, 50% are legally divorced, that's 80% of all couples. 80%. And maybe it had to do with the lack of preparation before we said I do. Maybe we had all these ideas of what marriage was supposed to look like, and it didn't quite show up the way that we thought. And we're like, do I even want this anymore? So we quit. And so what I'm telling you is, if you have a quitter's mentality, if you quit on aspects of the relationship, it will lead to the ultimate demise, of your marriage. Many people quit serving their spouse. Now think about it. In a relationship, both of you have responsibilities and duties to the particular household. But when I'm done, I'm done. Fix your own food, clean your own room, wash your own clothes, pay your own bills, clean your own car. Like, these are the things that we do. We quit on each other, and it creates a further divide, and it creates bitterness and resentment amongst the two people in the relationship. And if you have kids, trust and believe, they feel the pain. They see it. What happens is we think, well, I'm not feeling you anymore, so I'm going to just focus on my kids. So now I'm going to be the best mother I can be to my children. So my love is not going to go vertically down. And father says, you know what? Bump you. I'm not interested in you. I'm just going to deal with my kids. And so his love goes vertically down to the children. And while the children feel the individual love that's passed down to them, they do not feel as if they're in a safe, loving environment, because they can see the back and forth banter. They can see the yelling, the fussing, the cussing, the screaming. They can hear behind closed doors because your walls are thin, and they're experiencing the pain that you two are going through, and they have their own pain because of their particular perspective of the situation. So now everybody's hurting, everybody's in pain, because you quit on the relationship within the marriage. See, these are the things that we do. And then we settle for, well, this is just what it is. And then I'm just buying my time. And once these kids get older, or once I get in a financial position, or once somebody rescues me from my situation, we're already planning, plotting, scheming of ways to get out. But I want to let you know that you can turn things around, because when we were in our darkest day, and we felt like throwing in a towel, excuse me, and just ending it all. It was at that moment that we decided to try something different, to do something different, and that was the catalyst to the rebuilding of our relationship. And so, if that is where you find yourself, I want to let you know it's not too late. It is not too late. And listen, you can overcome your situation, but there's got to be a willingness to do something different, guys. We're talking about when you want to quit your marriage. Listen, before you do that, we want you to consider working with us. All you have to do is reach out. You can go to couplesacademy.org. You can set up a discovery call. And when you do that, we hear about your situation to figure out what you can do to shift some things. Many of you right now, if truth be told, you have already filed papers, or you're considering going to the office to file your papers, right? And so you're at your breaking point, you're at your wit's end. And I want to let you know that it doesn't have to end like this. And sometimes when we surround ourselves by other people who are in pain, other people who are on the verge of divorce, other people who are divorced, it reinforces our positioning and our decision to move forward in that direction. But the reality is, we are all products of our environment. You are the sum total of your 5 closest friends. If you can find healthy couples, if you can find a community of couples who are doing it right in a good space, they've been where you currently are and they've overcome it, and you place yourself as a seed in that soil, in that environment, I guarantee you'll have a different perspective. And this is exactly why we do the Last Chance Weekend every single month, to give couples an opportunity to realize that things can turn around. So stay there. We're going to go to a quick break and we'll be right back. If you have questions, if you have any concerns, if you want to weigh on this topic, we want to hear from you. So see you in just a second. Hey guys, you're back, and I am back. You're watching the Couples Academy show. We're talking about you want to quit your marriage. And listen, before we continue, I just want to acknowledge Salish, Kia B, Deltrick D, Fedelina, Miss Jules, Rhoda, LaShawn, Ralph, Gonzalez, Shireen, Lisa, Cleve. The list just goes on and on. We're glad that you're here. You're actually logged in with us from within the United States and all over the world, and we're happy about that, to know that we can make impact on the lives of others. Listen, we have a few comments we want to go to. Kia B says, "I cannot remember, but what or when was that pivotal moment when Danielle decided to stay and do the work after wanting to end the marriage? What happened in that moment? How did it change for better?" Well, it got to the point where she was just done. And I remember she made a statement. She said, "You do you, and I'm gonna do me." Right? We had little kids. So at the time we couldn't go anywhere, right? We both wanted it to end, probably her more than I. I mean, she was frustrated and I was upset and mad, and it was just hell. But once she made that statement, it was like a wake up call for me, because I was just like, okay, I already know where this is going. I don't want to go down that path. So it was then that, and so I say this all the time, and I hope you hear me. All you women, you need to hear me. You understand your man? I'm about to tell you something, and I've said it before. Men are motivated by the fear of loss. The idea that I could lose her and lose my children and lose the family and lose all that we had kind of done over the last couple of years, our community, our home, everything. For me, that was the light bulb moment for me. That was the pivotal moment that shifted things within me. So I had a desire now for something that I didn't have a desire for before. I wasn't willing to put in the work. I wasn't willing to see it her way. I wasn't willing to change because I was stuck in what I believed and what I wanted. Likewise, she was as well. And it was at that point that I said, okay, I've got to do something new and I've got to do something different. And maybe I don't have all the answers. Just because I was successfully single doesn't mean that I was guaranteed to be successful in my marriage. And obviously that proved itself to be true because we were in crisis. And so that's when I began to seek out and pursue, because prior to that, why don't we go to counseling? Why don't we? And I was just like, nope, not doing it. I don't want nobody in my business. I don't want nobody telling me what to do. We definitely not going to the church because we belong to a small community and everybody's going to know our stuff. I don't want the preacher preaching on my life a week after I meet with him. No. So I'm like, let's read a book. Let's listen to a pod. The same thing you're doing, not you, Kia, but the same thing a lot of us do. I did not want to go down that path. I figured, why don't we DIY ourselves out of this situation? We can do it ourselves. As long as we just read a book, get the principles, why pay all this money to hear somebody tell me what's in a book? And I didn't realize that I was stifling my own progress and I was the bottleneck in our marriage. And once I began to change my way of thinking, right? Once I began to do something different, all of a sudden things began to shift and change. Did it happen overnight? No. It took time. It took consistency. It took the both of us submitting to someone else's wisdom and knowledge and expertise to guide us through a process. And she wasn't hearing it from me. I wasn't hearing it from her. We were hearing it from another voice who we could respect. See, as long as I was trying to tell her what we needed to do and vice versa, all I could think about is, who are you? The same one who just XYZ, the same one. So there would have been no respect that we had for each other in that space. And so working with someone else and going through programs, we went through we offered the Moving Forward program because we went through a program, several of them. There were many things that we did in terms of a deep dive into our marriage to get it to a better place. And so it took work and it took consistency. And it wasn't one effort sporadically a couple weeks ago and another effort randomly over here. No, there was a consistency of doing the right thing long enough and no longer doing the wrong thing that began to open up her heart. It made her a believer. Then she got on board. And then we've been on board ever since. And so, listen, I know where you are because we were once where you currently are. And I'm here to tell you that you can turn it around. I want to go to Gonzalez. Gonzalez says, we have been there. It was horrible. Even though we would watch couples on our own terms and times, had the Audacity of Marriage book, tried to read it and put it down. When we stopped our focus and pain on each other, we worked on our own individuality and came back collectively. My wife prayed for God to heal me, not the marriage. I had, excuse me, I had made a major turnaround. We reached out to Hassani Pettiford and we were invited to the marriage retreat in July, and we needed more. And so in September, man, he's going on. I think it's not all there, but in September, he came back for our last chance weekend with his wife, and they have been in a tremendous place ever since. So it's the same narrative, guys. You can't do it on your own. And that's the biggest mistake that we make. And listen, I'm going to promote Couples Academy because we're Couples Academy, but we're not the only show in town. There are many great programs out there, many great practitioners out there. If you can find someone that serves you, then go with them, because we do not have a monopoly on wisdom. We don't. There are others out there. So pursue someone, no matter where you are, pursue them. But if you don't know, if you don't have access to, reach out to us so that we can help change your situation. All right, there's another comment. Apple, I'm reading this in real time. This sounds good, but my other half is a dead man walking through the relationship. Anything good, he rebels because it came from me. LOL, respectfully. I get it. I get it. You know, ego, pride, hurt, past experiences of pain, um, uh, interpreting what your agenda and your motive may be can make him resistant to anything you say. Maybe the way that you come across, the way that you approach, the way that you say, whatever the case may be, could be off putting. And so, this is why you need to have another voice who does not have the history with you that your spouse has with you, because it may open him up and you up to all types of possibilities. I'm telling you, it works. I remember when we were struggling financially and we had different methods and ways of dealing with our finances, and we could not come to terms. And I was just like, well, you need to submit. You need to shush and submit. That didn't work, folks. But what we decided to do was submit ourselves to someone else who represented our answer and who had our solution. And ever since that experience, it seems like we made such a quantum leap in our thinking and in our management of our finances. Prior to that, we were on the struggle bus for years, but we were willing to do something new and different to change our situation around. So I hope that this is helping, guys. You don't have to quit. You don't have to give up. If anything, quit thinking the way that you think. Quit engaging in the same practices and behaviors that you always have that have led you to the place where you're at. I mean, we talk about divorce. I had to divorce me from myself. Divorcing me from my poor communication habits, from my false sense of masculinity that didn't work in favor of my relationship, divorcing myself from certain emotional reactions. When I quit being who I had always been, it allowed me to remain married to my spouse. And this is what we need to do to begin to turn things around. All right, Lisa says, my husband is intimidated by my education and different culture. He once told me that I was out of his league. Wow. What can I do differently to show him that all these things do not matter? Well, I don't want you to dumb yourself down. I don't want you to be less than who you are to accommodate your husband. That is not a you issue. You should not apologize for your brilliance, for your education, for your degrees, for your experiences. That has nothing to do. I mean, his issue, in essence, has nothing really to do with you. That's an internal thing that he's struggling with, and the issue is now being is coming up in the relationship. But I guarantee you, there was something within him or something prior to you that he had a certain issue with, and now you're experiencing it. So I don't think that unless you're operating with an attitude of superiority. Now, if you're doing that, that's a problem. If you're always using your education and using your money and using your position and using your experiences and tearing him down and making him feel like he's less than because of how great you are. Now, if you're coming across that way, that's what you need to change. Okay. But if you're not doing that, then there needs to be something within him that becomes more confident and competent. And the reality is this, I say this all the time. Listen, if my wife is brilliant in spaces that I'm not, why would I feel intimidated by that? Why do I feel as if I have to compete with that? That speaks to my ability to properly select. I selected someone who had genius and brilliance and expertise and know-how in areas that maybe I don't. And I'm good with that because I don't have to be the cure-all for everything. That is what the power of partnership is all about. It is taking the brilliance of two individuals, bringing it together with purpose and intentionality so that you can live a life together that you could not live alone. So I would encourage him to go on a path of personal growth and development. If there are any limitations that are holding him back, encourage him, motivate him. Maybe he needs to hear from other voices that can inspire the things that have died within him. That would be the path. But certainly, you do not want to dumb down who you are to accommodate your spouse. I hope this is helping. This is a good conversation, guys. There's a lot of comments. I'm going to go to another one. I'm reading this in real time. Don't judge me. All right. Crystal says, what I hear you saying is to work on yourself individually. I agree, but what if one spouse doesn't see anything wrong with their chronically bad behavior? How long must one wait for change? It seems to be worse than better. Well, I do agree that the reality is Danielle didn't want it when I wanted it. She wasn't doing what I was doing at the time I was doing it. My change made her a believer again. And then eventually she got on board because it does take two. I was willing to, for a season, do for myself, by myself, to improve myself, to then demonstrate something different, and things began to shift and turn around. I mean, everybody's situation is uniquely different, and you have to look at the history, the time, the marital timeline of what has happened and what has occurred. At the end of the day, working on me, what does that even mean? Right? A lot of times we say we're working on ourselves, but what exactly does that look like? What book are you reading? What program are you a part of? What counseling sessions with whomever are you going to? Is there anything that you're doing outside of yourself? Is there any type of wisdom that you're tapping into that is not your own? Remember, it was Albert Einstein who said that you can't create a solution with the same level of consciousness that created the problem. And so working on yourself means working with someone or something that can help you see your blind spots and help you to become the best version of yourself. So if you're doing all this work and your spouse is cool and comfortable and feet up and not willing to change, well, you get to a place where you have to make decisions, right? How long can you endure that? Some people have a high tolerance for pain. Like there's a difference when somebody is operating at a slower pace than you. They're on a journey, but their pace is slower. So you get to a destination quicker than he or her. But when someone is disagreeable to a process, doesn't want to change, doesn't want to course correct, wants to be who he or she has always been, and that's what it is. Well, if you're growing and he or she is not and they're regressing, now you have a situation. Now you are in crisis. And this is why we have the last chance weekend to figure things out. Because when you're in that space and you're trying to make a decision, and you're making a decision in your feelings and in your emotions, you're going to make a decision that you regret. If you decide to stay, you may regret it and want to leave. If you decide to leave, you may regret it and want to stay. And so when you're seeped, soaked, and saturated in feeling and pain, worst time to make a decision. That's why they say, never go shopping when you're hungry. You're not going to make good decisions. And so this is why you rely on wise counsel, wherever that counsel may come from, to help you in that process, to help you see what you don't see, to give you proper perspective, to give you the strength that you need to make the decision that's best, right? And that's how you have to do it. That's what we've always committed ourselves to, the advice that we've given and what we've done for other couples. I just know that when things were horrible and there was no pathway to any type of change, and people reached out and were willing to try a different course, they were shocked and surprised at what they were able to do. So that would be my encouragement for all of you who are in this situation, because I know there's a lot of you who are in a bad place today. A lot of you. I just don't want you to make permanent decisions based upon temporary circumstances. Because guess what, folks? All things are subject to change. Guys, I hope that helped. Our 30 minutes is up. Hope you got something out of today's conversation. Make sure you tune in tomorrow as we continue with this topic of What do you do when you want to quit on your marriage? Love you guys. See you in the morning.